All right, welcome back, students. So today is going to be the last session of OOPS. All right, we have so far we have learned how to create, how to update. No, we have not learned how to update, how to create, how to retrieve, and how to delete and update is pending in CRUD operations. Right. So today we are going to learn the CRUD operation update. Right, and for that the query is if I show you, if I go to the SQL, if I go to MySQL. All right, and let me write it for you in Zoom. So I'll just create a bit of Zoom. Okay, so I will say, for example, I need to update the username or I need to update the password. For example, I need to update the password of Naveed, right? So how do you change the password here, right? Wherein the ID is equivalent to 2. So ID is never going to change. ID is going to remain consistent, right? So now if you have to change the ID, not the ID, but the password of Naveed, right? And the ID of Naveed is 2. You should know the ID of Naveed, right? And what will I do? I will have to first get an ID or maybe the username, because username is also unique. So we'll just go and update as per this. So I'll say update users, right? You have to update table users and you have to set. What do you set? Set in magic quotes, set password, right? It's the attribute name password is equivalent to, right? For example, my new password, right? So you have to set password, which is going to be my new password, right? Where which column do you want to update, right? Or which row do you want to update, right? Because you have to change the password, but password of what, right? So I'll say where username, that means you have to give the username, where username is equivalent Naveed, Naveed, and that's it, right? Where username is equivalent to Naveed. And now what I do, I'll say go. Now you can see that the password has been changed, right? So if you know it's not Naveed, it's Naveed but. So I'll just repeat it. Password has not been changed, right? Where username is equivalent to Naveed but. One row affected. Now you can clearly see that password has been changed, right? So new password of Naveed is, you can clearly see my new password. Now how do you do this, right? So I'll create a new file and I will call this file as save this file as update, right? All right, so now we'll save this file as update. And what I do right here is copy the code of login, right? I'll copy the code of login here. Why? I'll tell you. Because first you have to enter your username and then you have to enter your password. If the username and password matches, only then, that means we have to give password change option to the authorized person, right? What if someone comes and changes your password? No, only the one who is able to log in will be able to change the password. So I'll not call this acc.login because I'll have to create a new function. So now I'll go to accounts controller, right? So we have many functions in accounts controller. So we have a bigger accounts controller right now, right? And I will just create, I will define a function. I'll say define, right? Define, let's say about up, or we can say change password. Function is going to accept the object of users. Now, first thing that you have to see whether that is valid or not. So I will say if, all right, and this, or we can even accept self here, because I'll have to call self. So I can say if self dot, right, is valid login. That means if username and password is there, if username and password is not empty, and I will password because is valid login accepts one parameter, one argument, users, and I'm going to pass that argument users right here. If that is fine, right, then do this. And what if that is not fine, right? What if that does not return true, right? What if it does not return true? Then I will say, right, user dot set message, please write a username and a password. To log in order to log in, you'll have to write a username and a password. All right. Okay. User.set message, please write a username and a password. Now, if username and password is written, now what is valid doing? Now you can clearly see the function is valid logging is checking whether the username entered is not blank and the password entered is not blank, right? That's because we have to check. Why? Because if I go to update, we have to log in first because I have to provide username and password in order to change the password, right? All right. So now if this is fine, if this works fine, the second thing you'll have to say whether the password and username is genuine. And this is the beauty of reusability of code. This is where object-oriented programming is magic for you. You don't have to redefine. Already functions are defined. The same function is checking whether you're valid, your login is valid. You're providing username and password. Once you log in, you can clearly see login is going to check the same, right? And the same is going to happen here once you try and update. First, you have to log in. So you don't have to create another function in order to check the authenticity of user who is trying to change the password. No, the function is already there. You would call if self dot is authentic, right? And it accepts one argument, that is users, right? If the user is authentic, that means the username and password typed is fine, then do this. Else, I will say else show the user right here. So this else belongs to the if here, right? And else show the user that users.set message that the username and password is incorrect, right? So now if everything goes fine, if it's valid and if it's authentic also, then what you do is something like this. You do something right here, right? So you will say, right, now this change password, right, is going to be something like this. Like, now understand this first of all. You have to change the password. That means now you'll have to say, hey, provide a new password for you, right? Please give me a new password. And for that, I will say return true, right? So here I'm returning true to the function. And if there's any problem, I return false to the function. Return false should always happen after the message, right? If you return false here, the code is going to return and the message is not going to be printed. I will say return false, right? Now, first thing, check whether the username and password is typed. If the username and password is typed, compare it with the database, right? If it exists in the database, then return true. Else, if it does not exist in the database, show the message. And if user does not type anything, tell him to type a username and password. In both cases, you return false, right? So now this is the change password right here, returning true and returning false, right? Now I'll go ahead and I will first check this because I'll have to do unit testing by the time, right? I'll have to do it step by step, right? Unit testing has to be done step by step. And now I'll call accounts controller, which is ACC. I'll say, hey, now see this here. I'll call ACC dot change password, and I'll have to type and pass the object of user, which is you. And now let us see whether it works fine. Just like login, it's going to work like login. So I'll say FAHINKHEN, and the password is password. So I'm not getting anything, right? And now if I write something wrong, so I get please write a username and a password, right? And now if I enter a wrong username and a password, so we get the username and password that you have entered is incorrect. So far everything is going fine. Now I'll define a function. I'll say define, right, a function update password, right? So it is going to take one argument, that is users, right? So let's not do this return true and return false here, so let's forget it. It's not going to happen because we are going to define a new function. So let's define a new function here. So I'll say update password. All right, so I'll say update password, and the first thing I will do here, I will say print, right? Or let's not print anything. Let's say I am going to say users dot set password, right? So user, I'm just overwriting the password here now, right? Create a new password, right? So this is what I do here. I create a new password and I update this password right here. So the moment password is written, right? So we have to choose it now right here. So let me show you. If I call, if everything goes fine, if the username and password is written, and if it exists in the database, then I call this function update password, and that's it. So you will call the function which is self dot update password, or I'll make it private by just putting underscore. So I'll say self dot underscore underscore update password. Let's see how it works now, right? If you provide a genuine, okay, we have an error. Self dot update password, right? Indent does not match. I don't know. So it is define update password. I don't know. We have an indentation problem here maybe. And let's see. So indent does not match. Okay, I have to be just like this. I cannot go inside a function here. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. Now go to update and say please write your username. I'll say Fahim, and write your password. Now update password has an error. Okay, no self passed here, so I'll pass self. Once again we will try back. Alright, write the genuine username. Fahim Khan is the genuine username and the password is password. Alright, and now you can see right here, if everything goes fine, it's not giving us the option to print. Alright, so you're doing users.set password, create a new password. Sorry, input, you have to take this input from the user. Create a new password has to be taken as an input from the user. So I'll say update. So now let me choose FAHIMKHAN and the password is password. Now I get an input, create a new password. Now I will write and create a new password right here. So now this input, create a new password, is going to set everything done for us, right? And you can again say, all right, so I will just create a variable right here. All right, so fine, then everything is fine. So I can create query. Query, it's a variable that I'm creating. Query is equivalent to the same query that we have created earlier, update in single magic quotes, update users set password is equivalent to, right, this password inside single quotes. So now what is the password? I'll say users dot get password, because you just used set password, users dot set password. Here I'll do users dot get password. And now I will use the same cursor right here. So this is here, right? So, and yeah, don't forget to put F here to format. And I'll say cursor is equivalent to execute, right? Cursor.execute, but we'll have to define the cursor first. All right, so I'll define the cursor. Cursor is equal to connection.create cursor. All right. So now we have cursor. Cursor is equivalent to self, which is connection.cursor. That means you are initializing connection at the time of initialization of the constructor. Whenever you make an object of the class account, whenever you make an object of this account's class, constructor is automatically called, connection file is called, and the live connection is given to this connection variable. So same you're calling here, right? You say, right, now here you say cursor is equivalent to connection.cursor, and then you say, hey, I need to execute the query, and then you say self.connection and you commit, right? And then what you do in finally block cursor.close, right? Let me show you how is this done. So because it may create an exception, so we'll have to handle this exception right here. I'll say try to execute. If there's an exception, all right, because exception has to be caught, like we're catching it every time. I can clearly see, right? So we say catch exception as E, and here I'll say users dot set message E, and that's it. All right, and I'll say finally. It doesn't matter, does not matter if a code is executed or an exception has come. You have to close down the cursor in the finally block. So I'll say cursor dot close, right? After you close down the cursor, C is small, right? So now let me explain you for the final thing. Change password is called from update, right? First you take the username, then you take the password, then you call this function change password, and then after calling the function, because you pass an object of users which already has username and password, you pass the object of you which has username and password, and you call the function change password, right, of accounts controller. Because you already made an object of accounts controller, you go to accounts controller, first check, hey, whether username and password is typed, then say is authentic. If the user is authentic, only then only authentic user should be allowed to change the password. Otherwise every Tom, Dick and Harry may come and change anyone's password. Oh, password change requires an authentic person. Who do you want to change the password for? Right, so now we'll call this authentic. If user is authentic, we'll call update password, right? If not, then we'll say incorrect and please write a username and a password. So this else belongs to first if. If the username is not valid, please write a username and password. If it's not authentic, authentic means if it's not in the database, if it does not exist in the database, you'll say, hey, please, your username and password is incorrect. I may not allow you to change password. That means if everything goes fine, then we call this function update password. Here you can see is valid login is used for 3 times. For deleting a user, we're reusing the same function. For logging in, we're reusing the same function. And for changing the password, we're reusing the same function. That's the magic of object-oriented programming, that we don't have to create anything new. We reuse something that's already been created by we people, right? And then you call update password. Now you pass the same object to update password, but what is happening in update password? You first say, hey, user.set password. Take the password from the user, create a new password. Once the user enters the password that's been set right here, and then you create a query, update user set password is equivalent to, so this password means the column name of the database. Now you can see this is the column name or the attribute name, password. Set password is equivalent to, right, this password. But now you have to say where, what password do you want to set, right? So I'll have to choose that, no? And now I'll say where user name is equivalent to, and again formatted where username is equivalent to users.get user name, right? So I want to, the one who has logged in, the one who has already typed username and password, and that username and password has been completely authenticated, right? So change the password of the same user, right? Where username is equivalent to, for example, if I log in, I type Naveed Bhatt and I type this password. Now I'm logged in. Now I jump into the function change password. So the username is already there, Naveed Bhatt. So I'll say change the password where username is equal to Naveed Bhatt, because we know that we may not be able to change. If I don't supply where, we are going to change password of each and every one. So where is very important. Alright, so you'll have to understand this where. So I'll say where username, right? So where username is equal to user.get username. So we'll try this now. Alright, if everything goes fine then, right? If everything goes fine, so I'll say users.set message, right? Password was changed successfully, right? So the password was changed successfully. Now let's try and execute it from the update. So I'll go and I will say, all right, so let's try again. So please write your username. So I write my username as Fahim and password PA. So the username and password is incorrect. So change password dialog box is not coming. All right. So now if I write my username as Fahim Khan and the actual password as password, now I get, because now I'm authenticated. Only when I'm authenticated here will I get this create a new password dialog box. I have to create a new password. The old password is password, right? So I will say, is this changed, right? So this is my new password. Is this changed? I'll say enter. Password was changed successfully. Now go to the database and see for Fahim. Now you can see password has been changed. Is this changed? Clearly you can see it right here. Now if I go to login, and I have to log in now, I'll say Fahim Khan, and now I'll type the changed password, right? I'll say, is this changed? Now Fahim Khan is logged in because I just changed the password. Now if I have to update a password, I'll still go and update a password. I'll say, please write your username. I'll say Fahim Khan. What's your password? Is this changed? Right now, password, username and password matches. Now you can create a new password. So I'll say password. I'll just change it to my old password, and password change was successful. Now you can clearly refresh this and see that the password has been changed back to password, right? So that is for the CRUD operations. So this is it for the CRUD operations. Now all the operations for data sciences are going to happen from, now we're going to put an end to the spider, right? So and all the operations are now going to happen from Anaconda. So I'll go to Anaconda Navigator. Let's open this navigator and let me open Jupyter Notebook. So all the operations will be handled, right? Or we can say all the database related operations are going to be handled from the Jupyter Notebook, right? Let it open first. It's a web-based platform. It provides us the luxury of doing data analytics and data sciences and machine learning. So this is the best machine learning tool. All right. So Jupyter Notebook is starting, right? And web-based interactive computing notebook environment, edited and human-readable documents while describing the data analysis. Now this is going to be something very tougher, and it's not going to be a cup of everyone, right? It's not the cup of everyone's tea. Right, so let us start first. It's taking good amount. I don't know why it's taking time today. So I'll just click on launch again. Maybe it's updating something in the background. Who knows? Or maybe it's already open. No, it's not open. All right, so let's wait for a sec. Let me pause the video so that it opens first. All right, now my Jupyter Notebook has started. So this is your Jupyter Notebook. All right, I've done some programs. If I show you, many programs, right, in Jupyter Notebook, right? And for example, I did it to show someone in the previous time, right? It was an analysis on the data set, right? We already learned that, so we will be now starting with the Jupyter notebook, right? And we'll be starting with data sciences, right? So all the basic, I suppose, is covered, so there's nothing else remaining in basics, right? So everything else regarding the basics is already covered. So one thing that I want to show you can clearly see, right? So one thing that I want to tell you and one thing that I want to show you is that we covered more than basics in the intermediate level. So once we carry on with the development process now, each and everything will be covered there. But yeah, and this level and this process is basically very critical, right? We're not going to allow everyone in, right? So work hard and wait for your turn, right? So prepare for the examinations. So this exam is going to be a bit tougher than what it was earlier, right? And those who want to claim for certifications can still claim for certifications, right? And everything else is done, right? In this program. So we'll directly start with machine learning now, right? And it's not going to be as easy. I know that there are many students who just watching classes like movies without practicing them, right? It's not going to happen, and it's not going to help them either. Watching classes like movies, right? So you have to understand that machine learning may require you to practice for 7 hours or 8 hours a day, right? So that is giving up at everything, giving up at your social life, giving up at, at times at your tea and your food. So you'll have to work very hard for that. And for that, Raisa will come back to you and tell you about the remaining things. And what I require from you is to practice these classes again and again and again, right? And practice more of CRUD operations, right? So that we can get started with the advanced level. And the second thing that I want to show you is, just a moment. All right, so I just seen that we still have one thing remaining. I'll show you this IDLE here. All right, so this is something that you are going to see quite often in Python. So if I say print, all right, if I say print double underscore name, so it's going to give us main. Why is this name giving us main? So I'm preparing, because this is the last video, I'm preparing second video for that. So you'll be most probably getting this video, today's video, in 2 parts, right? So part number 1, and then once you watch part number 1, and then you start with part number 2, which is going to be half an hour class for this also. So that brings end the intermediate level. So I'll see you guys in data sciences after examinations. Wish you all the best. Bye bye. Take care. And do not forget to watch the second part. It's most important part.